Hello, friends, and welcome to Binge O'Clock, the podcast where we watch something and then we talk about it. I'm Joy Selden. I've seen almost everything.
I'm Danielle and Joy, and I've seen almost nothing.
And here we are back again to talk about Galavant season 1, episodes 5 and 6. And apologies. Well, maybe I shouldn't apologize. I'm not gonna apologize.
Don't apologize, Joy. We have nothing to apologize for.
We've been taking a little bit of time off between episodes to mostly relax and recuperate from the Rona.
Mm-hmm. And also just like general rest, recovery, restoration. I think that that's good for people to get. I do.
This is such a response.
Hypocrite.
Such a response for face. Exactly. Like she's saying this because she doesn't want me to talk about the fact that she was like, but I didn't do anything all day. And I was like, yes, you did. You were healing. Relax. It's
now,
fine.
To be fair, we also took last week off because I was away at a thing, you know?
Sure.
So it's been a couple of weeks in a row where it was my fault. And it was because I was doing things that were important to me. And, you know,
how dare you?
How dare I? And part of this is me being hypocritical. And part of me is saying this because sometimes you have to say something to yourself over and over and over again for it to sink in. So listen, everyone, rest, take time for you, much as I will attempt to do for myself.
Yeah. Sometimes it comes down to, hey, show yourself the same grace you would show others. Mm-hmm. I'm sure if I was sick with the Rona, Danielle would be telling me to stay under the covers as much as possible. So she should tell herself that as well. This is the lesson to be learned.
Yes, from our lives and from Galavant.
A little bit. Galavant taught it. Well, I think Galavant taught us, hey, if you're depressed, maybe stay down. That's okay. Because my dude had like people helping out and taking care of him and whatnot as when he was his most depressed possible self.
True. Very true. He had Sid. And everyone in their life, everyone needs a Sid.
Everyone needs a Sid.
When he needed someone to kick his butt into high gear, he had Isabella.
Also true.
So, best of both worlds.
I love Isabella so much. I'm just really here for her character and literally every single thing she does.
Me too. And I'm not going to lie. I'm skipping ahead to the end of these 2 episodes very briefly.
Do it.
I'll just say the thing and then we can do it again later. But I think that this is why, as much as I'm usually the person who likes schmaltz, and I'm usually the one who is very into every moment between the OTP in most shows, I'm not really here for this one. I don't know.
Between her and Galavant, you mean?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I don't love it. When they sing their little love song together, I'm like, I like a good love song, but I'm not here for this. And I think it's because I currently like Isabella so much more than I like Galavant. Just so much more. He hasn't won me over yet.
I mean, yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I think we get to know a lot more about Isabella just in general, right?
Yeah.
Like we get a lot more of, and I promise we'll talk about the actual things that happen in these episodes, listeners. Promise, we'll get there. But like we get so much sympathy. We get so much sympathy for Isabella right off the bat because her kingdom was taken over. Her parents are taken prisoner, and she hides for several months and I think this is where you and I have had difficulty with this, and forgive me if we've already talked about this, which is entirely possible. I think we're still in their kingdom. I think it's still their castle. And that's where we kept having that, where even are we? Why would you take these prisoners to your castle? And I think we're not back in their kingdom yet. Because
you're exactly right. Because I was the one who was confused about that before this episode.
Right.
And this episode
well, to be
5,
fair, I kind of didn't remember, and they don't talk about it.
Oh, okay. Because I was genuinely confused. I was like, I don't know where we are, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But this episode is where it became clear because, like, partway into episode 5, Galavant, Isabella, and Sid actually arrive in Valencia as they're looking for the king. And I was like, oh, I get it. Now I know where we are.
Well, but again, it's a little bit, they didn't explain it, right? They kind of like assume that you'll know where we are, but even the context clues are a little convoluted, you know, and I think in other words, what I'm saying is I think it's safe to say that if you only realized up to episode 5, like having a little trouble with that, I'm glad they clarified, well, we are actually going back to Valencia because that's where everybody is, right?
The Valencia sign, population 87, like crossed out 1400. That was awful.
I know. There was something so both heartbreaking and hilarious about that moment. But yes, so episode 5, they finally, as you said, we finally get to Valencia. Galavant is like super excited. He can't wait to go in and rescue his princess. Sid has this great idea for a zipper on pants.
Oh my gosh.
And he literally can't, I think the reason I love this moment so much is because I've been there where it's like I've had what I think is an amazing idea and I literally can't talk about anything else for like the next 2 or 3 minutes because I'm like, but wait, this thing. And like people keep trying to move the conversation along and I'm like, no, wait.
I think you're failing to appreciate the idea that I have.
Which, of course, is an amazing idea because he thinks about the zipper and they're both like, it's ridiculous. It'll never catch on, which like, I thought was very funny.
Of interlocking, and they're like, no.
What if you could just say, you pull up your pants and then just zip? No, Sid, stop. Dog with a bone, that's it. Isabella is very pensive. She's been sort of the latter half of this trip constantly trying to actually tell Galavant that, you know, there's something wrong and that I'm working for the king and that all these things. And like, she's at the point. He
knows you're coming. He's going to kill you as soon as you arrive.
Yeah. She's been trying to get out those words and it just hasn't happened. And it's been really difficult for her to do that. And then, you know, and she's also thinking about her parents and like, well, I have to save my parents. So I have to continue deceiving him, right? And this whole time, she's grown to really like him. And he wants to get out there. He wants to do it. And like, finally, she's like, you know what? You smell really bad. We can't go save Isabella yet. And he has one of my favorite Galavant moments, which is just like nonsense. And he like lifts his arms a little too high. And then he's like, no, we absolutely have to go take a bath right now. Which I absolutely adore.
And that's how they end up at the Singing Monks Monastery. Because Galavant needs a bath.
The Order of Our Father of Perpetual Refrain. Which I thought was pretty great.
I think it's also funny that with the monks in particular, their singing is happening in the canon of the show.
Yes.
You know?
This is like that little bit of like Kipo sign moment for me.
This reminded me of the Kipo sign also.
I know. Well, because, and there's also, I don't remember if it's in these 2 episodes that we're watching or in later episodes, but there's actually a later episode where like one character says something like, oh, you know, someone's like, oh, I'm so sorry I disturbed you. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I was singing a really sad song. Just say what you have to say. It was like, obviously within the canon of the show, people just sing. Like, I think even Princess Isabella is like so many refrains, so many asides, you know, like... But no, and it's an a cappella group of monks led by, well, I don't actually know if he's the leader, but in my headcanon, led by Weird Al Yankovic, who is,
I mean, why wouldn't he be, right?
What a precious cinnamon roll, that man. Love him to pieces.
And just Valencia just continues to be just kind of a strange, interesting kingdom. with very interesting customs. They love improv. They love gathering under the elder tree, and all Valencian monks take a vow of singing. Barbershop, specifically.
I know. The end tags in some of those songs are freaking amazing. I was just like, oh no.
So good. But in addition to them being there for food and shelter and a bath, Valencia is there because she is looking for a confessor.
Isabella is there, yeah.
Yes, looking for a confessor.
She's looking to confess her sins, so to speak. And it's so funny because even Isabella, who was brought up in Valencia, one assumes, and like this is her hometown, is just like, yes, I know you're about to sing your reply to me, but please don't. And
I kind of wish that they had let like a reply get through. I don't know. Feel like that was a bit of a wasted opportunity, but fine.
I know. Well, here's the thing, right? Like, not only improv, but improv singing as you're going along on a one-on-one confession sounds fascinating to me. I'm
right?
like, well, like, is your brain just a catalog of rhyming words and like, and like, is it just 4/4 time constant?
I feel like we lost an opportunity there. I do. I would love to see Isabella attempting to improv sing along with a monk who's a trained barbershop singer.
It would
Sounds
be amazing.
spectacular.
It would be amazing. But we don't get that. She stops each monk who is about to sing their reply to her and just talk to me. And including you better start speaking or I'm going to break your pitch pipe. And the response she gets is also hilarious because it's like he sums up what she's already told him. And it's like, let's lose so this knight who you've obviously grown feelings for, and she stops him and he's like, okay, we need to get through this because I need to get back there for the finale. So if you really want me to give you advice.
We're just going to have to bite this particular bullet and continue with the conversation.
It's so funny to me because even though it occurs to Isabella that she's in love with Galavant before it occurs to Galavant, she's still so resistant to it.
Because, as I said earlier, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. There's not a lot to him to like, in my humble opinion.
Well, I think here's the other thing about this show, and I know we're going off on yet another tangent. Stay with us, listeners. This is what...
It's okay. We like the tangents.
This is what you come here for, right? You come here for the tangents.
Right? Yeah.
One of my favorite things about Galavant is it does a particular trope that I don't usually like very well. And that trope is that everyone who's in love is miserable. And sometimes it's one of those things where it's like somebody's been married for 50 years and they like scream at each other all day, but they stay together because they're married and they love each other, but like you can't see evidence of it anywhere. Right.
Or maybe like the person that you love doesn't have a soul.
Right.
What could I be referencing there?
It's fine. It's fine. Oh my God. What is it? What do you need a soul for anyway? Not much.
It's just the instant you said everyone who's in love is miserable, like one very specific show came to mind.
I also really appreciate that, like, I appreciate that it was that couple, first of all, from that show.
Yeah.
But it's also this trope that you see a lot, right? Like when you see couples and you're like, but really, why are they together? And it's like, well, because they love each other. And it's like, that's
despite
supposed to be the only answer.
1,000-year-old demon.
Saying. It's so stupid. That one in particular is so stupid. We'll have to have our own episode where we don't actually watch any of the shows, but we talk about just why things like that make us mad.
That is a really good trope, though, and I like that you pointed out here. And you're right.
Well,
she's miserable because, well, Galavant, continuing with Galavant,
Just, yeah, like she is miserable because Galavant is like Galavant.
He's insufferable.
From what she's seen, he's not a great catch. Like, he's smelly, he's rude, he's arrogant, he's,
oblivious.
he thinks about himself. He's in love with another woman
who doesn't love him back and is a monster.
And, like, publicly humiliated him. And he still loves her. And, like, he can't get it through his thick skull. And yet she's just, like, so driven to him. And there's something about the way this show does it that I'm like, only here does it feel believable. And I agree with you, actually, because, like, I didn't really ship them until season 2.
Okay.
Because I wanted Isabella to kind of be by herself. Actually, I was like super happy to be like, I mean, she's a really good fighter. She seems like she has a really bubbly personality. She seems just great. And it's like your biggest complaint about her is that she has a deviated septum, which she can't help. Like, what? And I guess she talks a lot. Welcome to being a lady. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Has a lot of interests, none of which he shares, by the way.
Absolutely none. Zero.
Absolutely none. He hates improv. I don't understand how she could be with him. But he, you know what? Every now and then he calls her Izzy and her heart melts. And you're right. It's funny.
It's funny. It's
he did
funny.
Call her Izzy. Like, I kind of enjoyed that moment.
It's just, it has, I don't know. It has a charm about it that other shows don't quite tap into. And I think that's why I don't mind the trope. Because, like, usually it's a trope I absolutely despise. Because it's like, how is there love here? You haven't shown me any reason for them to still be together. Is it because of money? Because that's not love. Like, are they financially attached to each other? Sure. You know what I mean? Like, there's always something else that I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Love does not erase the fact that you hate your partner. Like, and it's just, I don't know why, done here. And maybe it's just because the actors are very good. And, like, even Galavant, when he, like, because I think Galavant does the stepping stone of, like, friendship first. Like, I don't even think Izzy hits friends. I think Izzy, like, instantly starts to fall for him, and she doesn't quite want it, right? But, like,
no, you're 100% right. She skips over friend and right into ooh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Galavant, I think, hits that friendship knob, like, first, where he's...
But he had to, because he was so focused on being in love. He thought that he was in love with Madalena.
Exactly. Like, he's already got somebody. Right?
Exactly. So he has, like, feelings, but he's like, oh, well, these are obviously friendship feelings.
Obviously, they're friendship feelings. But, like, he's also, like, defending her to the Pirate King. You know what I mean? And, like, in a way that would make you think, like, are you together? Because you're having a lot of, like, you don't want her to be put down, but in that, like, almost brotherly way where it's like, only I can make fun of my sister, But anyway,
this is not off topic. I refuse to believe that this is off
topic.
No, this isn't off topic. This is very on topic, because do think
for the overarching
portions of the show and the overarching conflict between Galavant and Isabella in these 2 episodes is, spurred forward partly by her betrayal, but partly because of her feelings for him. Right? Like, it's both of those things. And there's a reason, like, the culminating moment between the 2 of them in these 2 episodes is yet another love song. Like, that's just like, that's what this is all about.
Exactly. And it's like, I also love that, the side characters hit on it first. And, like, Sid is just, would you just kiss already for, like, the entire time they're walking together. On the other side of this, so they formulate their plan that the monks are going to go and sing at the castle. And that's when Galavant will strike.
Yes.
On the other side of this, though, the king is like, I have made my plans with Isabella. Isabella is going to bring Galavant to me by the time the crows sing their last call or something. Did you write any of them down?
No, I didn't write any of them down.
Fair. That's fair. But there's a bunch of, like, by the time the frog croaks its last, like, and it's like, so, like, 9 o'clock.
So, like, 9 o'clock. I mean, full disclosure, that was because when I was watching these episodes 2 weeks ago, if I at any point paused, I would not have finished them by our record time. So
fair.
there was no time to pause.
Listeners, we did have like a set time to record, but we were both a little too exhausted, unfortunate, from both of our days. And we were like, rather than subject our listeners to both of us sounding a little, sluggish, we wouldn't have been as peppy, put it that way. And we just, we wanted to make sure the listening experience didn't suck. You're welcome. So,
the fun thing about this is that, yes, the king has got this whole plan together, right?
Yes.
However, he's gotten it into his head that it's going to be so much more fun if he surprises Madalena with it. And so Madalena has no idea that the king has this huge plan in place. And so she just thinks that he's been sitting around for an entire year after invading Valencia doing nothing.
Yeah.
So he is getting more and more and more excited and amped up, and she is getting more and more and more frustrated. Yeah. So that's them.
I love it so much. I love that Madalena is just like, especially because King Richard is so bad at keeping secrets.
Yes.
And Gareth is just like, you need to stop doing your evil king whisper. And he's like, what whisper are you talking about? It's just like, Richard, stop. She's right there. She's going to know. And, she gets very frustrated to the point where she starts singing, and we get our villain song, and it's such a good song.
Such a good song.
And it's, is it just called You? Wait.
I don't,
it's probably called No One But You.
No One But You? I would buy that it's called No One But You. But just fittingly, the entire Madalena is singing the song to her reflection, and she is her own chorus in the song. It's fantastic.
She literally backs herself up every time.
And it's thematic because Madalena is the only person that she trusts, and that's her character, right? Tying this back to the little bit of backstory we got when she was having her date conversation with the king. She grew up in poverty, and she grew up having to scrap and scrape to get every little thing that she has ever wanted. And so she is her own best man, teammate, partner. I don't know what word I'm looking for there.
She's her own, she makes her own destiny.
Yes.
Right? She creates avenues for herself. And I think it's like you said, I think it was in the last episode, maybe even the episode before, where you were like, well, what's better than a knight? A king, right? And it's like she's had her own destiny in mind all along, and she just keeps attaching herself to these useless men, and she's done. She's done with it.
She doesn't need them. She only needs her. In fact, and this is ultimately what she gets to here, is that she's like, I don't even need a king. This kingdom doesn't need a king. This kingdom can just have me, a queen.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then she's the only one who can get you what she wants. Fantastic song.
Oh, it's such a good song. Of all the songs in these two episodes, there's one that's my top number one, but this one is number two. It's such a good song.
I want to know what your number one is.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We'll get there. So one of the things Madalena does is she notices that the chef has the hots for her handmaid and Gwen. The chef has gotten pretty buddy with the king. So she's basically like, hey, if you help me figure out what the king is doing, I'll set you up real nice with Gwen, and then you guys can do whatever you want, and it's basically I'll give you the hookup. Mm-hmm. And Gwen is such a precious little ray of sunshine. I love her to pieces. She's arguably one of my favorite side characters, just because even though she gets a bigger part later on, but we only see her tiny pieces of her as she comes in. She has, I think, a bigger part in season 2, but anyway, she's very much a very practical woman, I think, for her station of why would I even try at happiness, because our life is hard and difficult and we're poor and we don't have anything.
Right.
So what does it matter, right?
And happiness isn't for people like us.
Yes, happiness
We
is
get a
not
very
for people
cute
like
song.
us. And that is my number one song.
I was hoping that it was going to be this one, because this one is probably tied with the Madalena song for me.
Sure.
Like, I don't, in my head, it's not better.
believe
it's
that.
tied with.
And it's called If I Could Share My Life With You, and it's hilarious. And it's just two poor, like, serfs
Yes.
talking about how their life is crap, but maybe it would be a little bit nicer if we could share it together. And it's so funnily written.
It's so funny.
And it's hilarious. Like, there's so many lines that, like, you shouldn't stop and think about the song too long, right? There's so many lines that are so funny. One of my favorite one is like, thank the Lord, our life expectancy is merely 32.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like happiness is actually achievable in your lifetime as long as you don't expect too much. You don't have to worry about this long life that, like, you'll have to suffer through. It's like, no, you could be happy for a couple of years and then you're dead. Yeah.
Exactly. We only have a few more.
Only have a few more. It's fine.
We might as well spend them together.
And it's very funny. And I love that song in particular because it's so charming, and like the chef is able to kind of win over Gwen a little bit of just
I think he does. He totally wins her over because she comes to find him in the kitchen later.
I know. She comes to find him in the kitchen later. But she doesn't find him because the big reveal at the end of this episode is while the king is waiting to ambush. No, actually, I'm sorry. Rewind a little bit. The king does ambush.
There's a lot that happens in this episode, not gonna lie.
The end of it is really chock full of stuff. The pacing in this show is a little lopsided. There's a lot of time devoted to the songs and the setup for the songs, and then they kind of like bang through the plot a little bit.
Yeah, they're like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, none this happened. And you're like, whoa!
Whoa, what just happened? I mean, I know what just happened, but geez. So the quote-unquote ambush goes off well. First, Isabella shows up and tries to plead Galavant's case and is just like, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
You should let my parents go now because I'm not doing this. And the king is
and
like...
she offers to hand over the jewel if the king spares Galavant.
And the king sticks to his guns and is just like, nope, we've already planned everything out. This is what we're doing. And so she kind of goes back to Galavant and she's like, okay, I guess we're doing this. So they come in like the dead of night.
Definitely like a fourth wall break there that I love, where they like get like flashes back to the monastery and Isabella and Galavant are there and they're putting on the monk robes. And Isabella literally goes, how did we get here? Because one moment she was in the palace telling the king, I'll give you the jewel as long as you spare Galavant. And then next moment, this whole monk thing is happening. And she's like, how'd we get here? And the show just continues.
I completely missed that. I'm so glad you clocked it.
So great. I love it.
I love that it works on so many levels, right? Because it's like, how do we get here to dressing up like monks and trying to stow into the hilarious, but also how do we get here because what on earth, how did I travel all the way back here in time to get dressed? But yeah, so they do the plan. They show up sort of in, it feels like the dead of night, but I guess it's like 9 o'clock. And they show up and the king is there ready to take them all down to the dungeon. And before he does, he definitely reveals that Isabella played all of them right into his trap.
Yep. That is correct.
And I'm forever mad because it's just like King Richard, the constant 4-year-old of just like, if you had only kept your mouth shut, they wouldn't have had to know. And then they wouldn't have be like having this argument.
Which, listen, ultimately brings them closer together as a team. Right? But they had to get through some disagreement first.
Yeah.
So, like stuff. There's a lot happening. Like, literally, it's revealed that Isabella has betrayed Galavant. They get thrown into the dungeon. They're coming up with, altar plans. They're arguing. But also, Madalena is there, by the way, also hatching her own evil side plan.
Yep, because the chef has told her what they're doing. She's gotten very angry and written a very angry letter on the back of the chef.
Letters to.
Don't know who the letters to. And there's this moment of like Galavant being like, well, I hope my death will be like, quick and painless kind of thing. Or like, I guess I'm just going to die in 10 minutes. So thanks for that. And he leaves the cell. And then there's this like, we follow people traveling, right? Like the king goes to where there's 3 people lined up at a guillotine, at a hangman's, what's it even called? Gallows?
The gallows. Yeah, I think it's the gallows.
He goes to the gallows. He's like standing there. He's all proud and puffed up. We follow like Galavant, I think, who had a bag over his head.
Yeah, because as Sid and Galavant and Isabella were arguing in the dungeon, and we get that little moment where Galavant is like, just tell me, did Madalena ever want me back? And then the guards like drag him away.
And to her credit, Isabella doesn't lie and is just like, I honestly don't know.
I don't know. But he gets dragged away, you're right. So it's like, listen, the long and short of it is there's a bait and switch.
We're following Gwen, who's going down to the kitchen.
Yeah.
To be with Chef, but Chef isn't there. And so then King Richard like pulls off the black bag and it's Chef on the gallows. And so then you're like, where's Galavant?
Where's Galavant?
And Galavant is eating the dinner that the chef prepared for him and Gwen with Magdalena.
Yes. So when Galavant was dragged out of the dungeon, it was Madalena's guards who are dragging him out of the dungeon into her quarters. And that's
where the episode ends, which is ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
I love it, but it's ridiculous. It's what makes you go, and now I have to watch the next episode because what?
Yep. Which is titled Dungeons and Dragon Lady and picks up right where episode 5 left off. It's Galavant and Madalena in Madalena's quarters, sumptuous meal in front of them, and Madalena has sat them down so that they can have a chat. And you know what? It's actually kind of nice.
Yeah.
It's nice that we get to slow down a little bit, and these 2 characters get to unpack their feelings a little bit, because Galavant is just being the complete romantic that he is. He was in love with her. He envisioned this beautiful life together where they lived in a castle by the sea.
They did their own farming. They raised their own animals.
Not a castle by the sea. Sorry, like a cottage.
Like a cottage, yeah.
Yeah, And Madalena is like, well, the thing is, I live in a castle now, and I love stuff.
Yeah, I love that she just comes right out and says, I really love stuff.
I just love stuff.
I love stuff. Oh no, Galavant, you can't compete with I love stuff. You just can't.
And he should have known that, right? He should have known that when she left him at the altar, when he unburdened himself and said, I love you, and we don't have anything, but we can have each other. And she was like, nope, I'm going to go with the king, right? Yeah. But sometimes you need to hear something more than once for it to really sink in. And that's Galavant.
And then Galavant is just like, right, but you love me, don't you? And that's when we get the song. Wait. I think I looked up what it was called. Hang on.
Okay.
It might not be on the album. No, it's got to be on the album.
It's got to be. How could it not be on the album? Well, at any rate, it's great, though, because Madalena reveals to Galavant that she has a whole new plan. And the whole new plan is to get rid of King Richard, to rule over the kingdom with herself as queen, and to have Galavant there just kind of like as her...
warming her bed.
Exactly. I can't remember what the term for that would be. But there's definitely
I think he actually does just say, like, your boy toy. And she's like, yeah.
But sort of like having a courtesan...
Sort of, but I don't even think he would be that high up in the...
I don't know.
At any rate, affair.
Galavant then, asks her whether she loves him and tries to sing a love ballad, which Madalena then turns into a tango, which is pretty great.
Which is pretty great. He's just, pouring out these like, I love you, I love you, I love yous. And her response is like, gee, thanks. I know. You said that. And finally he's just like, and I'm sure you love me too. And then the beat sort of drops. And what she says is, I love you. I mean, as much as someone like me can love anyone, which is not, and I love you. You know, when people are like, that's not an apology.
Yes.
Like, my brain was like, that is not an I love you.
Nope. Or it's not the I love you that Galavant wanted to hear.
Yep.
Except
it's
that
definitely not the one he has for her.
It's very confusing to him. And it's confusing enough that he spends basically the rest of the episode just kind of chewing on those words and trying to figure out, what does she mean? She loves me as much as someone like her can love someone. And is that enough?
It's just there's so much disdain when she sings it to him, and he's just so convinced that this is who he needs to be with that it doesn't even occur to him that like he deserves more, which is so sad.
I know.
Because it's like I feel like as someone who has been in a relationship before where like you loved someone way more than they loved you, it is a very lonely place to be. And you start to fill in the blanks of like, well, see, they really love me because of these subtle things. When it's like, it's a little bit like, did they actually say that? Or did you want them to say that? And you just drew that from their words. Like, she even says it in the song of like, I love it when we go out together, people stare. And I love that when we sleep together, it's middling to fair. And it's like, what? What?
Right.
Like, are you great in bed? That sounds like you're not. Actually, like you guys are kind of okay, which
and people going like staring at us when we go out. That's nothing to do with you.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with love.
Yeah,
it has everything to do with appearance, and I guess that's it.
Which, at the very least, Madalena is not someone who is shy.
Right.
About it, sharing how she feels.
Sure.
Like, she's just kind of an honest character, and she is who she is at all points in this show.
Yeah.
Which I do kind of enjoy.
And it's like, this is what the thing that fascinates me about Madalena, like before we really met her, was like, she had to be like this before.
Oh,
and
absolutely,
Galavant
she was like this.
Yeah, and Galavant was just so in love with her. But, like, we never get to see that, right? Like, we only get to hear how in love the two of them were, and they basically were just in bed the whole time. And, like, did they even have conversations? Because it sounds like they didn't. So it's like, you finally get to know somebody, and it's like,
Right?
Maybe,
but even then, he doesn't really see it. Because he's
not.
so freaking oblivious.
Well, because again, he's hung up on that first part of that phrase, which is "I love you."
I love you.
Like, so many, 2 or 3 more times the words of like, "This is not an I love you." You know, it's like unconditional love with conditions. It's like, no.
Yeah, wait a minute.
We said unconditional. But yeah, so he fusses about this for basically the rest of the episode, and she says like, "I have a plan. Someone is coming. You won't have to die. We'll figure it out. You just go back down into the dungeon and just like wait." Yeah. Right. And in the meantime, on the gallows, the chef is there being like, "Please don't kill me." And slowly sort of trying to get the king to like, I guess, pay attention to his problems, right? Because Gareth has kind of abandoned him. Well, not abandoned. Yeah. Abandoned is a strong word, but like...
Gareth is having his own little, like, side conflict in this whole episode.
Gareth is just kind of like, my queen needs me, and kind of pieces out.
Well, because the queen specifically demanded Gareth's services, right? Because the queen wants all of Galavant's teammates to be just, like, killed and tortured.
Yeah.
You know,
especially Isabella, I guess.
Because she's jealous, I guess.
She's jealous. My leftover man mutton.
she tries to get Gareth over to her side, right?
Right.
Which, spoiler, doesn't really work. I feel like we don't really want to spend too much time on that, but Gareth certainly
he has kind of a crisis of loyalty, but it's very small.
Very, very, very small.
And it's, like, I do like that Madalena, like, clocks him a little bit and is just like, you're a dog and you need a strong master, and that's who I am. It's definitely not the king. And like, and I like that Gareth doesn't disagree with that. Mm-hmm. Gareth is just kind of like, I mean, she's making a good point, but like, I've served the king since I was like a boy. This feels weird. I really enjoy that when Galavant gets back to the cell, Sid has been guilting Isabella the whole time. And this boy has been raised, this man has been raised by Jewish grandmothers. And there is no doubt in my mind that he knew exactly what he was doing.
She feels very, 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 very guilty.
Yes. He didn't let up for a second in my headcanon. It's just constant. I also really like the interaction between Madalena and Isabella, where it's like, why are you repeating everything I say? Like you said, being very jealous girlfriend, right? Like,
yes.
Jealous cheerleader who finds out that the boyfriend is actually into nerds and like can't handle it.
Whatever. I'm excited for when the two of them actually get to go head to head, because we don't see that a lot in this episode. Like,
I know
Madalena just throws a couple of barbs in Isabella's way and then just kind of like huffs off.
Right. Which is still weird to me, because it's like, well, if you actually wanted the jewel, just let Isabella give you the jewel and then like let them all go. Right? Like, you've been talking about the jewel for a year.
Right. I mean, but it's not just about the jewel, right? It's the stuff, and it's knowing that she is the most powerful person in every single room, right? So that's really why she wants Sid and Isabella to be killed and tortured or whatever, and especially Isabella, because she doesn't want the idea that anyone has any control over the things that she likes or cares about.
Yeah, definitely.
Like her boy
definitely
toy.
Like, don't touch my things.
Exactly. Very don't touch my things.
Which is so weird. Meanwhile, the chef has convinced the king not to kill him. Mm-hmm. And, that he's kind of like wound pretty tight. And the king is starting to question just his just everything. Right. And it's just like, oh, but what makes me the kind of person that you can just like walk all over a dime? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, like, why do people keep treating me like this?
Exactly. And it's just, I just wish I knew why I am the way I am. And so Chef is like, well, I know this wizard named Xanax, which is played by Ricky Gervais. And that's all we're going to say about that.
Yeah. I know. I was kind of like, whenever the Xanax pieces of this episode resurfaced, I kind of wanted to like skip. Ugh.
I know. That's, Xanax is a magician who can't legally be called a magician. Mm-hmm. It's like a magical spiritual guide or something, which I thought was actually pretty funny. Like, it's 2015's version of like a drug dealer who can't really be, like a pharmacist drug dealer almost, of like, well, I can't legally be a pharmacist anymore, but I can help you find what you're looking for kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like that sort of seedy kind of level of what we're talking about. But so he takes them on this like weird spiritual journey, which honestly, the biggest reveal is that we find out that like not even his parents wanted him to be king. Like, his brother didn't want it. His older, much more qualified brother, in the rules of 1256 or whatever year it is, strong, tall,
kills things. Yeah.
Definitely has a sex drive, I guess. Right. Because that's important for some reason. But like, it's a very, like, this person who we named Kingsley is supposed to take the throne because the king is dead. And he does not want it. Instead, he wants to go out adventuring. Yeah. And Meanwhile, King Richard is there in the crowd, not even standing with his parents, not even standing with Kingsley. And like his mother basically forgets he's even in the room. And it's like, oh, right, I guess he could be king too.
Yep. And this is when the king realizes that he's lived his whole life as someone's second choice.
Yeah.
His kingdom's second choice, his parents' second choice, Madalena's second choice, probably Gareth's second choice.
But I love that little tidbit with Gareth, like just
Yes.
at the end of like, Gareth, you will be the king's guard. I'm only 10, but okay.
But okay.
My name's Gareth and I will faithfully serve you, my king. And like, that's it.
And Gareth has been serving him since that day.
Right? That's the only person who's been super loyal to King Richard this entire time.
Yeah. And listen, I'm like happy we got King Richard's backstory. I have to say that like I hate that fake spiritual journey trope because, because it's appropriative.
Yeah. Oh no, 100%. It's like,
but 2015 show. That's how we get the king's backstory.
Yeah. It's not even trying to be subtle about it, really.
No.
It definitely has some questionable origins of where it came from, for sure.
Exactly, which is why I'm like, I don't want to spend that much time on that part of the episode. I would rather spend time on the parts of the episode that take place in the dungeon.
Yes. So meanwhile, in the dungeon, there's Galavant is having trouble, and like the jester is also there, which I thought was hilarious. I love the callback to the jester of like, she's the worst.
Because he's just been in the dungeon this whole
time. And they're all chatting. And then Gareth is there of like, I'm sitting right here, like sharpening a blade or something. And he's trying to like ask for advice, but not ask for advice. He's basically trying to talk about his day, but he's bad at being cryptic about it because we all know he's talking about the king and queen. And he's just like, damn it, just let me be cryptic just once. Why are we doing this? And he's conflicted. And he's like, I mean, I like torturing. I'm very good at torture. But like,
But I don't know if I want to torture people for her, right? Because he's served the king his entire life. And he has probably kind of pieced together that Madalena is going to overthrow the king, right? So that's
there's
happening.
no way that Gareth didn't see that coming. Like, I know we come down on, how he's like this weird bro stereotype, but he's also extremely like
sharp.
He is a sharp man. He has lived in a palace for a very long time, and he knows how these things go.
He's been a guard. He knows how to watch the court, see what's going on. He gets it,
Yeah.
So that's that piece of it. And then there's the piece between Isabella and Galavant, which the way that this plays out is that Isabella is, part of it is that she's trying to throw herself at Galavant. But the way that she's going about that is by asking himself, like, why do you love Madalena? And trying to help him, Galavant, just kind of come to the correct conclusion that he
doesn't.
That he doesn't.
He loves Isabella.
Maybe he doesn't love her yet. I don't really know. She doesn't really know.
She throws herself into that ring pretty quickly.
She does.
Like, with a small nose and ethnically hard to pin down.
But he's entirely oblivious to everything that she's doing. He's just kind of like, do I love Madalena? I don't know if I love Madalena. And so, like, the way that the episode, the way that this all turns out is that she apologizes to Galavant again. And finally,
because she
at the end
babbling.
of this, starts Isababble.
She starts babbling, and then she's like, well, maybe I babble. And then she's like, no, I do not babble. Babbling people only say nonsense. I don't say nonsense. I say very specific things. And meanwhile, she's babbling the entire time. It's very funny.
The entire time, which is where we finally get the moment where he admits That he's come around and he's not angry at her, and he understands why she would betray him in order to save her parents.
Right.
Because she didn't know him. He was just some random knight. And her parents were going to be killed by the king. Like, of course that was the choice that she made, right?
No, it's amazing how he's, like, I like that he's mad about it for like 2 seconds. I think he's like mad about it in the first episode, and by the second episode, he's over it. And granted, we're telling a very fast story here, so one would hope that's what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just still this, like, I'm so glad he eventually is no longer mad about that.
Because it's just so reasonable.
Yeah.
It's almost anti-TV. Because in the TV world, you're supposed to take something small like this and be mad about it for like a season and a half.
Right.
And instead of being mad about it for a season and a half, in this show, Galavant was mad about it for like 2 half episodes.
Yeah.
Like 20 minutes of screen time, which I'm very, very, very okay with.
Yeah.
Because he's
I'm okay
right.
with that
she
character.
Made a very reasonable
I'm okay with
choice.
that character growth. It's fine. It's fine. And yeah, which brings us to the song of Love is Strange.
Yeah.
Where they both essentially finally admit that they love each other. And it's
that
ridiculous.
Love is the worst.
And that love is the worst.
And that they're miserable together, but they're together.
But they're together. Again, that's how you know they're in love.
Mm-hmm.
They're absolutely, utterly in pain and miserable.
And Galavant realizes in the course of the song that Madalena never loved him, which is very important for him to realize.
Oh my God. It's like the antithesis of like, maybe you're not the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But like, I feel like it's the A side and the B side of the same vinyl record.
Oh no, I agree. Because it's like, oh no, you are the worst. We're the worst.
Maybe
But
we're the
we're
worst
in love.
together and it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so weird. I forgot that it actually says in the song, it's the worst.
Yeah. It's the worst.
Oh my God.
Ish.
I just...
Okay, so Galavant decides that he's going to save the day. He goes to the dungeon doors, realizes they've been unlocked this entire time, so off they go. Meanwhile, Gareth tells the king... No, wait. Right? There's a whole, like, Gareth King moment. Yeah. Where Gareth is officially loyal to the king. He tells on Madalena.
Yes.
And
he
the
tells
king is like,
Madalena
I'm going to throw Madalena into the dungeon.
Right.
Which is where we get the end of the episode. It's a pretty great end of the episode.
Yeah, the big reveal of the person she wrote the letter to is Kingsley.
Who is? Kingsley!
It's so funny to me because it's like he is so much older.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love the idea that it's just like, yeah, Kingsley, my much older brother, I think he even says in the flashback. Yeah, Rutger Hauer.
Huh?
He's Rutger Hauer. His name is fascinating, but it's like Rutger, last name Hauer, Hauer. Rutger Hauer. He's how do you even explain him? He's a really good like character actor. You can kind of tell in this, like, I think he's also I don't even think he's American. I think he comes from the Netherlands, if I'm not mistaken. But
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't really recognize him, but I feel like that's
fair. Well, speaking of
unusual for me.
That's fair because you haven't seen a lot of stuff.
I'm now looking at the list of movies that he's in, and I'm like, I've seen a couple of these, but I don't remember who he was in them.
That's fair.
Like, who was he in Batman Begins? Mm.
Oh man, I used to know that. I used to know that.
Who was he in Blade Runner? Mm.
I think the thing I know him most for is, now I have to look up the list. It's so funny to me because it's like I've seen him over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it
I
becomes
mean, he's in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. He was one of those actors who, like, he had a fascinating face, you know, and he just got job after job after job after job. He had a lot more jobs in, like, probably the 70s and 80s. I want to... Oh, that's right. He was in Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets, which was almost a good movie. Bazinga! It's okay. It was maybe one day... Maybe one... Take a drink, everybody. Maybe one day we'll actually watch that one. It's not like absolutely god awful. It's just it had so much potential and they took it in weird and interesting ways, but it's fine. I mean, we were talking about Buffy. He's in the original Buffy movie.
Oh, okay.
Which have you seen? You've seen the original Buffy movie.
No, I have not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Well,
I've just seen the show.
He plays the, I mean, look, the Buffy movie and the show are very different.
So I've heard.
Yeah. We'll get around eventually to watching the Buffy movie, I think. It feels like a...
Feels right.
Like a must-see. It does. It feels right. But he plays the bad vampire in that, which is essentially, you know, like the master before the master kind of thing.
Ah, gotcha.
But yeah.
At any rate, back to Galavant. We end with Kingsley arriving. Madalena's laughing because she thinks that she's like got King Richard, which I don't know if this plan is all I don't know if this plan makes any kind of sense to me. And here's why.
Sure. Okay.
Kingsley is a real conqueror.
Right.
You know, he's a real killer. And he's here to take the king's lifestyle and take the king's kingdom. And I'm like, Madalena, I thought your whole plan was to not have a king, to be the queen, right? So
Right.
I guess that she thinks so much of herself that she thinks that she can get rid of Kingsley. But that is so much harder than getting rid of the king. You know? It's like bringing in a much bigger pest to get rid of a very small pest, when really you could have just stepped on the small pest. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
I just don't think it makes sense.
I wish our listeners could see the hand gestures that went along with that. Because they even repeated themselves for the, I just don't think it makes sense. And that was great. Absolutely fantastic.
However, it's going to propel the show forward, I guess, and
it will
make our
it will.
plot even more intricate. So I'm not upset by it. I'm
interested. I'm interested to see where you once this lands. I'm interested to see what you think.
Okay.
I think Madalena has, I'll put it this way, I think she has much more control over this situation than she does with Richard. Because with Richard, it almost feels like she doesn't want to be the bad guy, right?
Yeah.
Like Richard technically has all the power.
Mm-hmm.
And in some ways, yes, Kingsley could have all the power, but Kingsley also doesn't want to be king, remember?
Right.
So like, in a way, I think it's an actual like, solid choice for her in that she can just take over and nobody can care. As opposed to Richard, who will like, you know, make her feel guilty for being a bad guy when it's just like, yeah, burn it all down, you know?
Yeah. I mean, that's operating on the assumption that he still doesn't want to be king, which I would never trust. Personally. You know?
True.
Like, when you take sort of a power-hungry individual and you just like dangle being king underneath their nose, I would never trust someone not to say yes.
That's fair. That's a fair point. I'm interested for you to see where this goes. But yeah, I think we're down to one more thing.
Do you have one more thing?
I marked a couple. Let's see. I do kind of like the running joke. I have a couple very small ones. I like the running joke about how King Richard needs to lay off the wheat. That like he might have celiac.
Oh, King Richard.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe he has celiac, but before we knew what celiac was. So it's
right,
like,
and his tummy is just always a little bit sore.
Exactly. I think the other thing I wrote... Oh, yeah, the other thing I wrote down was Sid and the monks.
Oh, yeah? What about them?
Because I love that towards the end, Sid sings with the monks, and it's just like, but maybe you belong here, Sid. Not with Galavant.
Not with Galavant. No one belongs with Galavant. I mean, now you all know my opinion on that.
I mean,
whatever. I've already talked enough about that. Okay, my one more thing.
Yes.
Is the king's practical joke, which we didn't get a chance to talk about, but I thought was pretty funny. I didn't think the practical joke was funny. I thought, everything kind of around it was funny. But this was when Isabel first arrived at the palace on her own and offered to hand the jewel over to the king as long as he spared Galavant. And the king takes this moment to kind of re-threaten Isabella and her parents. And as he's kind of threatening her, he lifts up the covers of these 2 silver dinner platters to reveal Isabella's parents' severed heads sitting on the plates. And they're sitting there with their tongues hanging out the sides of their mouths, looking very much dead. Isabella panics.
She lets out a shriek.
And then her parents immediately start moving. And it's then clear that there are 2 holes in the table and the parents are sticking their heads through the holes. And the king is like, joke. It was a practical joke. And then my favorite piece of it is the mom's line, where the mom is like, I'm so sorry, honey. We've been prisoners for a long time. We lost perspective. We thought it would be funny. Have you been under there the whole time? Yeah, it sounded funny at the time. We've been prisoners for a long time. We lost perspective.
I mean, they have been prisoners for this whole season so far.
A year, according to
the in-canon timing is that it's been a whole year, which is ridiculous.
That is a long time to be kept in the king's dungeon and to be kept under their thumb.
Yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm. How many more episodes are left in this season?
Just 2.
It's 8? I wasn't sure if it was 8 or 10.
The first season is 8. I think the second season is 10.
Okay. So next time we record, we're going to be watching the finale.
Yes.
Maybe.
Yes? Yes, the season 1 finale.
Yes, the season 1 finale. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. I'm interested to see where, once this ends, where you think, if you thought it ended where you thought it would end and set up the stuff for season 2.
All right. I'm interested as well, specifically because this is technically not my first time seeing the finale.
I know,
but
I
don't remember what happens. I don't remember.
But you
I don't even remember if Isabella and Galavant end up, quote, together at the end of season 1.
Oh, there you go.
I
guess we're just going to have to watch and see.
Yep. Yes, we are.
It's the part where I put on my mask and I'm like, yeah, we don't know, do we? Lie through my teeth.
All right, listeners, I think that's the end of the podcast episode. So, with that, we would love to hear from you. Please check us out at Binge O'Clock Pod on Twitter and Facebook, where you can answer the question, what is something you would trust only yourself to do? You can also email us at bingeoclockpod@gmail.com. And don't forget, we have a Patreon. Find us at patreon.com/bokpod.
That's right. And tell your friends, tell your family, tell your loved ones, tell the live lobsters in your life about Binge O'Clock, and we will see you next time.